Hello everyone, welcome to Zoho Sheet's webinar. This is Jaya Shankari, the product marketer for Zoho Sheet, and I'll be the host for today's session. So in this webinar, we'll be looking into charts in Zoho Sheet and how you can choose the right charts and customize them based on your dataset. So let's get started. So this is the agenda for this session. So first we'll look into a brief introduction about Zoho Sheet, the product itself, and then we'll move on to the topic for today's session, that is charts, and then we'll look into charts in Zoho Sheet. And finally, we'll have a demonstration about how charts can be created and customized inside Zoho Sheet. So why Zoho Sheet? For those of you who are not familiar with Zoho Sheet, it is an online spreadsheet application that provides you with the perfect blend of analytical features such as functions, charts, pivot tables, etc., and collaboration features such as sharing, real-time collaboration, commenting, etc. And all these basic and advanced features are provided for free of cost without any restriction. In Zoho Sheet, your files are saved on the cloud, which means you can work on your files anywhere using any device without being held to one particular hardware device. And Zoho Sheet is also available for mobile devices for both iOS and Android applications. So coming to the topic for this session, charts. So what are charts? So charts are nothing but those objects that you can use to visually represent your data. So when you have rows and rows of numerical data, it becomes a little hard to study and observe. In that case, you can use a chart to visually show your data and study it in an instant. So charts in Zoho Sheet. In Zoho Sheet, there are more than 35 types of charts that can be used for various data sets. And Zoho Sheet also provides you with an extensive array of customization options you can use to make your chart the perfect one. Also, in Zoho Sheet, there's an AI-powered analytical assistant called Zia who can help you with recommended charts, pivot tables, and insights about your data. Not only that, we have also integrated with Zoho Writer in such a way that you can simply copy-paste your chart from Sheet to Writer and bring in your live charts inside the Writer document. So charts and Zia in Zoho Sheet are both available on mobile apps too. And now we'll jump into the demonstration and see how we can create and customize charts inside Zoho Sheet. So this is the spreadsheet I'll be using for the demonstration. So you can see that I have many sheets here that I'll be using for various chart types and customization options. So in this sheet, I have very simple data of the list of gift items I've purchased, the expected cost I had, and the actual cost of the gift items. So this is a very simple data that we have, which is a comparison between the expected and actual cost of the gift items. So now let's see how we can draw a chart to actually show this comparison visually. So we'll start with a column chart for that. So I'm just going to select the source data range for the chart first. So once that's selected, you can either create a chart using this icon here in the toolbar, or you can go to the Insert menu and click on Chart. So that will open up a pop-up that shows you the various charts that can be used. So apart from the various chart types, Zoho Sheet also provides you with recommended charts based on the data that you have selected. So you can either choose a chart from here, that is the recommended list, or if you have a chart type in mind, you can directly go and choose the chart type. So now, as I mentioned, we are going to create a column chart. So I'll click on column. So here in the top band, you can see the broad category of chart types here. So within that, you'll have the subcategories listed too. So now we have chosen column chart here, and within that, I'm going to choose column. So this is a simple column chart that is giving me the comparison between the expected and actual cost of the gift items. So you can see that it is visually showing me the difference between the expected and actual cost as columns in the chart. Below you can see that the blue columns represent the expected cost and the green columns represent the actual cost. Now let's see the customization options we have for the chart. You must have already noticed the side panel here on the right. So this side panel gives you contextual options for the chart. So up first we have the various chart types that are being provided. So if you want to change the type of chart that you have drawn, you can just choose from here. And then we have the source data range. So if you wish to change the source data for the chart, you can do that from here. And then we have the option to choose where the series are in the data, that is in columns or rows. And then we have the option to choose the label for the chart. So here you can see that the first row and first column are checked by default. Let's see how the data is here. So on the left, you can see that the first row in the source data is supposed to be the label for me, as well as the first column is supposed to be the label for me, because without these two labels, my chart is not going to be understandable. So let's move on to the next option. So you can see an option called Include Hidden Cells. So if you have any filtered data or hidden rows or hidden columns in your data, you can choose to include or exclude the hidden cells. Also, you can see another option called auto expand that is checked by default. So auto expand is nothing but, so when auto expand is turned on, if you have any data records that are being added next to the source range, those data records will be appended automatically to your charts. So now I'll show you how that works. So here in our data, I'm just going to insert a row and add a record. So on the right in the chart, you can see that the data record I had just added gets appended automatically. So this is how auto expand works. If you wish to turn it off, you can do that too. And then we have an option called aggregation. We'll look into aggregation in detail later on, so we'll just skip that now. And finally, we have an option called top or bottom N. Now let's say you want to see the 3 gift items that you had the highest expense on. So for that, you can just choose top here, choose 3, because I want to see the 3 most expensive gift items in the list, and then select the value by which you want to see the chart. So now I'll be seeing it based on the actual cost. So on the left, you can see that the chart changes accordingly. So these 3 items are the most expensive from the list I have right now. So in this way, you can narrow down and have more focus on the top or bottom values in your list. So now I'll just reset this chart again back to normal. So now you can also note that there's another tab here in the right side panel called Customize. So once you click on that, you can find the various categories, which gives you the option to change and customize the various sections in your chart. So the first is chart and axis titles. So you can note that we already have a chart title. If you wish to edit it, you can do it from here. Or you can also add a chart subtitle or titles for your horizontal and vertical axis too. So below that, you can find the formatting options too. So you have the font size, formatting styles, font color, and alignment too. So second, we have the legends. So these 2 labels here that actually represent what the series in the chart mean are called legends. So you can choose the position of the legends in your chart. So now we have the legends placed at the bottom of the chart. I can even choose to have it on the right. But you can see that when I place the legends on the right, the actual chart is not having enough space. So I'm just going to place it back in the bottom. So based on the type of chart you have and the way you want it to be shown, you can change the position of the legend. If you need extra information about the series in your chart, you can add data labels to them. So data label can be a value, a label, or even series. And in some cases, it can be a percentage too. For now, I'm just going to add a sample data label here. So I'll choose value. And here in the chart, you can see that the actual values of each series, that is the cost, is being shown for each series here. So now I'm just going to remove it because I don't want it in this particular chart. You can also note that the title, legend, and data label text all have the formatting options given. So under series, you can find the options to have a threshold or a trend line in your chart. So we'll see how we can add a trend line in another example. So for now, we'll just move on. So next is the horizontal axis customization. So here you can see an option called reverse axis order. So when you just click on that, you can see that the chart's horizontal axis just gets reversed. All these options are based on the way you want the chart to be displayed. So it's all for your convenience. And then second, you have an option called labels. So if you wish not to show these labels here in the horizontal axis, you can simply uncheck this option here. But you can see that without those labels, this particular chart is meaningless. So I'm just going to turn it on. And you can also see various customization options for the label. So there's an option here called slant label. And you can see that there are 3 angles that are provided for you based on which you can position the way the labels are shown. So I'm just going to click on 0 degrees here. We'll see how that changes in the chart. So once I click on 0 degrees, you can see that. So you can see that there's no slanting angle at all here in the label. So now when I choose 45 degrees, that makes my label slanting. So this way I can actually view the whole labels here. And then we have the option for vertical axis customization. So there's an option here called multiple y-axis. So we'll look into that later on with a perfect example. And similar to the horizontal axis, you can see there's an option here for you to display or not display the labels in the vertical axis too. If your vertical axis scale is not representing all the series in your data, you can also choose logarithmic scale just to have a clear understanding in your chart. You can also choose to have a plot line inside your chart along with the label and the value. So if you want to have an average expense value that has to be shown in the chart, just to see how many items have exceeded that particular value, you can draw a plot line. And here you can see an option called units or scale factor. So using this, you can choose the unit using which the vertical axis scale must be represented. So now you can see on the left that my chart actually does not need any units from here for now. So we just close it. And then we also provide the option for you to change the number format of the vertical scale. So when it comes to charts being visually appealing is also an important factor. So that's why we have various styling options too. So first you can see that Zoho Sheet provides you with predefined color themes that you can use for your chart. So we have 6 themes that are provided along with monochromatic themes that are given. And you can also customize these themes based on your choice. So I'm just going to select another theme here and see how the chart changes. So now you can see that on the left, the chart looks more vibrant. So you also have the options to change the font family, the background color, border color of the chart, or even the transparency or opacity of the chart. You can also choose to have gradient in your chart. You can also see the options to show major and minor grid lines. So these lines here that you can see in the chart are the major grid lines. So now I'm just going to turn on minor grid lines. So these are the minor grid lines that will be shown in the chart. So these major and minor grid lines can be used for a better understanding of the value of each series in your chart. So for now you can see that these minor lines are not having a purpose in this particular chart. So I'm just going to turn it off. And then you can see an option here to create the 3D chart. So once I turn on 3D here, on the left you can see that the chart has become a 3-dimensional chart. So this way you can choose to have your chart the way you want. So now I'm just going to turn it off. And then you can see some options here called tooltip and animation. So when you hover over the series in your chart, you can see the actual value of each series being represented in the form of tooltips. So if you do not want these tooltips to be displayed, you can just turn them off using the option in the side panel. While most of the customization options in the side panel are common to all the chart types, there are certain options that are specific to certain chart types, and we'll look into them further on in the demonstration. Apart from the various styling options that are provided in the side panel, Zoho Sheet also provides you with contextual menus that you can use for styling your chart. So when you want to use the contextual menu, just keep the side panel open on the right and just click on the part of the chart that you want to edit. So now let's say I want to edit the background of this chart. I'll just select this chart here and choose a background. So when I want to change it back, I can simply choose it again. And if I want to change the legend or the chart title, I can just click on the chart title and that will show me the formatting options for the title. So this way you can contextually edit the desired part of a chart. These 3 dots represent advanced options in a chart. You can use these options to move, clone, delete a chart, even download a chart as an image, or even publish the chart for sharing. So we're not going to look further into these options right now. So we'll just move on. So you can see that the total amount that I've spent for the gift items is around $240.88. So now what if I want to see the contribution of each gift item to this particular total? So for that, I'm just going to draw a pie chart here. So I'll choose the source data I want. That will be the gift items and the actual cost alone. So you can see that I've chosen only one series with the numerical values for the pie chart. So I'm just going to click on insert chart, click on pie chart category, and within that choose pie. And yes, we've got the pie chart here. So now I just want to reposition my chart below the column chart. So I'm just going to click and drag it to the desired position. There we go. So you can see that this pie chart is actually not meaningful at all because I'm not able to see what each of these slices actually mean here. So for this, let's add legends and data labels to this pie chart to make it meaningful. So in the side panel, just go to legends and add a legend to the right. So there we go. So now I know what each slice actually indicates, but I want to see the values also in the pie chart. So for that, I'm going to choose data labels and value. So now this pie chart is more meaningful and I can see the contribution of each gift item at a glance. So now that we've seen how we can create a simple column and pie chart, let's move on to the other chart types and customization options. So going to the second sheet here. So you can see that on the left I have a large sales data, and on the right you can see a bar chart that is actually not understandable because the vertical axis here is not meaningful at all. This chart is actually supposed to give me the total sales based on region, but here, as you can see, each item is being repeated again and again in the vertical axis, that is making my chart look messy. So this is where the option called aggregation comes into play. So I'm just going to open the side panel and choose aggregation. So here you can see options using which you can consolidate the data in your chart. So first you'll have to choose the operation using which you want to consolidate the data. Now in this chart I want the total sum of sales by region. So my operation here will be sum, but based on the data and the chart you want, you can choose another operation too. So now I'll just choose sum. And second will be the value you want to consolidate. So that will be sales for me. So you can see in the chart that it is showing the whole sum of sales in all the regions. But this is not exactly what I want. I want the total sum based on each region. So for that, I'm going to choose the axis as region here. And there we go. So in the chart, you can see that the region-wise sum of sales is being shown very clearly. So now this is the chart I actually wanted. And for that, I can use the aggregation option here. So when you want to consolidate the data in your chart and make it meaningful and understandable, you can use the aggregation option. So now let's move on to the next one. So in this sheet, you can see that I have a small data that shows the products that were sold on a Black Friday sale. So here you can see that I have 3 major categories of products, that is LED TV, fridge and a washer. So here on the right, that is in the second column, you can see that I have subcategories or subtypes for each product. And then I have the units sold, cost per unit and the total sales. So for this particular data, we are going to look into something called grouping categories. So let's see how we can do that. Select the source range you want for the chart. So that will be product and the total sale. And go to insert chart. I'm going to draw a column. So now you can see that this exact chart that has been created is not meaningful. We'll see why. Here in the side panel, see that there are no labels being selected for this particular chart. So I'm just going to select the labels for my chart here. And there we go. So now this chart looks more meaningful. And you can see that here in the horizontal axis, the major product category is being shown, above which the subcategories or the subtypes are also being shown. So this is called grouping categories. So this way you can see more than one label in the horizontal axis. That makes it more meaningful for you to read the chart. So when you want to study data from the chart alone at a glance, it is important that you have a chart title so that you'll know what the chart actually represents. So let's add a chart title here. So this title is not giving the complete meaning, so I'm just going to add a subtitle too. So now this chart looks perfect. So this is how you can create column charts with grouped categories. So now let's move on to the next example. So in this sheet, I'm going to show you how we can create a combination chart. So a combination chart is nothing but a single chart that has more than one chart type within it. So you can see that this data represents the monthly sales and profit percentage. So if you want the whole data table to be considered as a source range for your chart, you can simply place your selection anywhere in the data table and Zoho Sheet will auto-detect the table for you. So I'm just going to directly insert the chart now. So here you can find an option called other charts. When you click on that, you can find an option called combination. So when you choose that, the chart is here. So here you can see that only columns are being shown, whereas the legend shows that there's supposed to be a line here. So when you look closer, you can see a line here at the bottom, a green line. So this is because you can see that the vertical axis scale here is not appropriate for the profit percentage I have in my data, because this vertical axis scale is actually given based on the total sales value I have in my data and not for profit percentage. You can see that the total sales value is in thousands, whereas the profit percentage value is less than 2 here for me. So for this case, we can go for an option called multiple y-axis. So I'll just go to customize, choose vertical axis, and I'll choose multiple y-axis. So once I do that, you can see in the chart that I've got another y-axis scale on the right. So now this y-axis scale is perfect for the profit percentage graph I have here. You can also add a third vertical axis scale if your data needs it. So you can see that the scale that is being shown in the color green is for the green line graph I have here, and the scale that is being shown with the color blue is for the blue columns that I have here. So this way it will be more clear as to which scale represents which graph inside the combination chart. So this is about combination charts in Zoho Sheet. Now let's move on to the other chart types. So up next we have a chart type called histogram. So some of you must be familiar with the chart type histogram. So histogram is nothing but a chart using which you can study the frequency of values within each range. Here you can see that we have a sample data that is giving us the list of invitees for a party along with their ages. So when you draw a histogram for this particular data, so the chart will give you the count of people who are attending in each age group. So this way you can decide the theme of your party based on the age group of people who are actually attending. So here in the histogram chart, you can see that the age is being grouped from 10 to 15, 15 to 20, and so on. So in this way, you can see the count of people from each age range that are attending your party. So now what if I want to change the way these ages are being grouped in this particular chart? So for that, choose customize, choose horizontal axis, and here you can find an option called the binning interval. So these ranges that are being shown in a histogram chart are called bins. So here you can enter the binning interval of your choice. So now let's say I'll give 10 here. So once I give 10 here, you can see on the left that the chart changes accordingly. So now the horizontal axis is grouping age from 10 to 20, 20 to 30, and so on. So this is how you can use a histogram chart to view your data set. So now let's move on to the next chart type. So up next, we are going to look into scatter charts. So scatter charts can be used when you want to plot the chart based on two numerical variables. So here you can see in the sample data, we have the age and the weight listed. Here in this scatter chart, you can see that each plot here is drawn based on both the age and weight values. But from this scatter chart, I'm not able to exactly conclude on how the weight is varying based on the age. So for that, I'm just going to draw a trend line now. So we'll open up the side panel and go to series. You can see an option called trend line. So once I click on that, you can see a blue line that is being drawn here in my scatter chart. But this straight line is not giving any meaning in my scatter chart here because the plots are in a varying range of ups and downs. So for that, you can change the type of trend line you have drawn here. So I'm just going to choose the polynomial trend line. The polynomial trend line has a hill and a valley, but this trend line too is not exactly appropriate for the scatter chart I have here. So I'm going to change the degree of the polynomial trend line to 3. So a degree of polynomial trend line decides how many hills and valleys you can have in that particular trend line. So here now this line is perfect for the scatter chart I have. So this indicates perfectly on how the weight varies with respect to age. As you can see, it rises and then goes a little steadily and then rises again around 50. So now this is making it clear for me to study the chart I have. So this is how you can use a scatter chart and trend line to study the data you have. So now moving on to the next chart type. So next is the Spiderweb chart. So this is one of the most underrated chart types we have. The Spiderweb charts can be used when you want to study multiple factors around multiple items or products. For example, we have a data here that is giving us the product customer rating, and you can see the list of products along with the 5 individual factors for which the customers have given us the rating. So the rating scale is from 1 to 10, and customers have given a number each based on the factor and the product. And on the right, you can see the spider chart here. So each line here that connects from the center represents the 5 factors, whereas the green, yellow and blue line here that are drawn represents the product. So based on the value for each factor, these lines are drawn here. So you can easily compare and study the various factors affecting the various products at a glance. So this is the type of data for which you can use a Spiderweb chart. So now let's move on to the next chart type. So next up, we have the stacked column and the line graph. So here on the left, you can see I have a data that is giving me the date, the page URL. We have the total page views here and the 3 sources from which we have got the page views, that is organic, referral and direct. So this data is taken on a daily, weekly or monthly basis, and it can be really long. So you can see 2 charts on the right. First, on top, we have a stacked column chart. So a stacked column chart is nothing but a column chart that has more than one series that is being shown in each column. So you can see that in each column there are 3 series that are being represented. So at the bottom we have the organic, in the middle we have the direct values, and on top we have the referral values. So this way you can see the contribution of each source to the total page views. As I had mentioned previously, certain options in the side panel will be provided for certain chart types. So here you can see an option called total data labels. So this option is mostly used for such stacked chart types, because you can see that there are 3 series being shown here, and if you want the data label to show the total sum of all these 3 series in the column, you can do that. So now I've actually added the total data labels for each column here. So I can see both the total page views as well as the contribution of each source in a single glance. So now what if I simply want to see how the total monthly page views is progressing? So for that, I have a line graph here at the bottom. So now we have a very clean and clear line that represents how the total page views is progressing each month. So there are a lot of ups and downs, and finally you can see an upward trend here. Now we can also add a trend line to this chart here if you want to see the trend on how the page views is progressing. So just click on trend line and there we go. So here the linear trend line looks perfect. So now one thing that you're supposed to note here is that in both these charts you can see the horizontal axis is being represented by months, whereas in the data on the left you can see that the dates here are actually given as daily dates and not as months. So how are these charts actually showing the dates as months here? So that is where aggregation can be used. So as we previously saw here, the operation is chosen as sum, the values page views, and here in the axis date has been chosen. And when date is chosen, you can see a small calendar icon on the right. That will give you the option to consolidate the data based on the year, quarter, month, etc. So this way you can choose to consolidate your data based on the period too. So that is about stacked column and line graphs in Zoho Sheet. So now let's move on to the next chart type. So next up is the Pareto chart. So Pareto charts are commonly used in quality analysis when you want to find the factors that are majorly affecting the quality of the product or service. So here we have a sample data that have a survey result as to why people are not preferring a certain restaurant. So we have certain factors that are listed on the left, that is in the first column, and we have the count of people who actually said that particular factor is why they are not willing to visit the restaurant. And in this chart here, you can see the columns representing each factor. So this dotted line here represents the 80% line, and then you see another curved line here that is being drawn across the columns. So there's a rule in Pareto charts called the 80-20 rule. So from this point where the Pareto line and the dotted line intersects, just draw an imaginary vertical line to the horizontal axis. So the factors on the left to that vertical line are those factors that are majorly affecting the quality of the service or the product. And changing these factors will give you a major positive result. So here for this data, working on cleanliness, ambience and location will give a positive result. So apart from the chart types we saw right now, we also have other chart types. We'll just see a run through of them. So under column, we have something called stacked column 100%. So this is similar to the stacked column chart we saw previously, but the difference is that each column will be drawn to 100% and the series will be drawn proportionately within it. And then we have another type called grouped column. So here this is similar to the other general grouped columns we see. The difference is that the second series will be drawn within the first series, so you'll have an easy comparison. So next up we have the bar charts. So bar charts are similar to the column charts. And then we have line charts. You can see the different types of lines that can be drawn. And then we have another type called the timeline. So when you want to study data based on a particular timeline with important events being marked, you can use a timeline chart. So next is the pie chart. You can see various types of pie, semi-pie, donut and semi-donuts being shown. So all these types are similar to the pie chart we saw previously. Then we have the area charts. So these area charts are similar to the line charts we saw previously. The only difference is that these charts are represented with shaded areas instead of lines alone. So next up we have the scattered chart types. So you can see that the scattered charts, instead of plots, you can also have lines and lines with markers. And then there's another type here called the bubble charts. So bubble charts are similar to scatter chart types. The only difference is that you can also have a third numerical variable represented in the form of the bubble size. So that's the difference between the bubble and scatter chart. And last we have the other chart types where we saw about combination charts previously. And then we have the waterfall charts. So waterfall charts can be used to study the cumulative effect on a particular value or a series of data. So let's say you have a revenue and then cost of production that has to be decreased from the revenue, and finally the outcome will be the net income. So this series of data can be represented using a waterfall chart. And then we have a funnel chart. So a funnel chart can be used to study the different stages in a particular process. For example, if you want to see the number of people who visit your store, the number of people who actually purchase a product in your store, and the number of people who wish to return a product to the store. So in that case, so the top layer here will have the number of people who visit the store, and then the middle layer will have the number of people who actually buy a product from the store, and the bottom layer will have the number of people who want to return the item. So the number of layers can differ based on the data you have. So this is how the funnel chart works. And then we have another chart type called word cloud. So word cloud, as the name indicates, can be drawn for textual data types. So this chart is drawn based on the frequency of repetition that a value has in the given list. So those values with the highest frequency will have the maximum font size, and those with the least frequency will have the minimum font size in the particular chart. And then we have chart types called candlestick and OHLC, which are similar to each other. So these two chart types can be used for trading data, where you can study the open, high, low and close stock prices. And then we have another chart type called polar. So the polar chart type is similar to that of the Spiderweb chart. And finally, we have two chart types that are horizontal and vertical bullet charts. So a bullet chart can be used to study the progress in a data towards a fixed target or goal. So if you have a fixed target or goal value, and if you want to see the progress in data towards it, you can use the bullet charts. So that's all about the chart types in Zoho Sheet. So now that we have seen how we can choose, create and customize a chart in Zoho Sheet, let's look into how Zia can help us do the same. So this is the sales data that is giving me the data about the date, sales rep, region, item, the units sold, unit price and the total sales that happened. So if I start drawing charts for each of these categories in the data, and if I start customizing it, it's going to take a lot of time for me. So for that, I'm going to get help from Zia. So all you have to do is place a selection anywhere in the data table and click on Zia here at the right bottom in the side panel. So in just a single click, Zia will give you the list of recommended charts, pivot tables, and insights about your data. And if you have any questions about the data, you can also ask and get answers from Zia. So now we'll just concentrate on the charts that are being shown here. So first you can see that the sum of sales by region is being shown. So this is the chart type we had previously seen during aggregation. So you can note that Zia is giving you the perfect aggregated chart, so you need not spend time in aggregating the chart too. And secondly, you can see another chart here that is giving us the sum of sales by item. This is also an aggregated chart that is aggregated based on the item that is being sold. And thirdly, you can see another chart that is giving us the sum of sales by region and item. And if you wish to add this particular chart to your sheet, you can either use the plus icon here on the right, or you can simply click and drag and drop this chart to the desired position. And there we go. So you can see that I've got a very visually appealing and vibrant chart that also has the chart title, legends, and is aggregated in a single click, and that did not take me even a minute to make. So as I had previously mentioned, apart from the default recommendations that are already provided by Zia, you can even ask questions to Zia and get answers. So let's say we ask for the total sales per month. So for that, once I type in the question and click on enter, you can see that Zia gives me the relevant pivot table and chart below the question. Here you can see the chart is giving me the monthly total sales. So this way you can type in any data related questions and you can get answers for them. So this is how Zia can help you create and work on charts in Zoho Sheet. So in this webinar, we have seen how we can create simple charts and how we can customize them using this options in side panel. And then we saw how aggregation works. And then we saw the various chart types that are present in Zoho Sheet. And finally, we saw how Zia can help you create and work on charts in Zoho Sheet. Do try out charts in Zoho Sheet and give us your feedback. If you have any questions or feedback about charts or Zoho Sheet in general, you can drop us an email anytime at support@zohosheet.com and we'll be happy to help. If you have any feedback about this webinar video, please drop them as comments below. Thank you for joining me today for this webinar. Thank you.